Welcome back to another episode of Shit I'm 30 with me, your host, Carla Ramirez.
And your boy, Tony.
Today we have a friend of the show, again for the second time, Mr. James Smith. Do you say Mr. when it's an attorney, or do you say something else?
People just call me James Smith or, lawyer, dad. So but usually, James Smith Esquire. But I think Mr. usually is for older people. And I know that I've got a little bit more gray since I saw, a little less hair. So if you call me Mr., it's going to make me feel older.
How like with doctors, like Dr. whoever or like stuff like that. So I didn't know if you guys have like a...
Usually people say like Attorney Smith or Attorney James.
Attorney James.
Or so-and-so Esquire.
Exactly.
That's too much work. He's a friend already. He's been
That's
here before.
right.
So you guys go back and check. I think it's episode 19 or 29, somewhere along those lines. Was it 29?
Who you asking?
I was asking myself, really. I have it here somewhere.
Are you trying a case right now or something?
29.
I actually just had a case this past week in federal court, and then I was gone for a while. I was up in Pensacola, Florida, and had a very interesting case up there. It was a client who was accused of kidnapping and sexual assault. He was arrested as a result of a woman who complained that she'd gone out drinking one night, passed out, and then she woke up the next morning in the car with, as she called him, a strange black man. And so she said she remembers waking up, begging him to take her to her car, and then she said she blacked out again and woke up a few hours later the next morning. Her parents came over. They told her that she needed to go to the doctor. She did. The doctors then called the police. They then did some surveillance, reconnaissance of video downtown, and what they found is that there was an African-American man who was seen carrying her from the ground to his car at about midnight. So they brought him in, questioned him, and he said, yes, I did see her. I did help her because she was out with another guy. She was slightly intoxicated, but the video... I'll be honest, it didn't look good because it looks like in the video that she's very drunk, and you can see him in the video carrying her to his car, and then he drives away. So the police arrested him for that, charged him with kidnapping and with sexual assault. What they didn't know is that he'd actually recorded the sex. So when he was being processed, he said, listen, if you look on my phone, there's evidence to show that the sex was consensual. And so they actually did look at his phone, and he recorded 4 videos of the two of them having sex.
Did she know about the recording, though?
She didn't know about the recording.
So is that's a crime, ain't it?
Well, without getting into that, let's just say that the the videos definitely rebutted her contention that the sex was not consensual, because I can tell you, anyone looking at those videos would have a hard time believing that she was drunk and that she wasn't giving consent. But what the prosecution did is they proceeded on a theory that because she was drunk, there's no way that she could have consented. And they tried to rely upon the initial videos of him carrying her to the car.
Maybe her feet hurt. My feet hurt all the time in heels downtown.
Yeah, I wish I'd thought of that. But, really what it came down to was just the videos. So he was charged with the crimes. We took it to trial. And once the jury saw the videos, that was pretty much it. So he was found not guilty.
And that's what he does, ladies and gentlemen, which is why we have him here as an expert, because he gets people off.
Well, I'd like to say that I win them all. Hey, we have some highs and lows. Like this past week, unfortunately, was a loss, but that was a pretty tough case. There was some overwhelming evidence. But for the most part, knock on, I guess, whatever this is, wood. Generally,
whatever IKEA palm. I don't know if it's real wood.
There you go. But yeah, generally, if a case is going to go to trial, that means there's some good facts for the client, and so we usually do end up getting a pretty good result.
Okay.
So even if they don't get up, I remember when we talked about last time, even if it's not guilty, is maybe a lesser charge than they would have gotten otherwise.
Exactly. I mean, you always have 2 goals. Try to get an acquittal if you can, but if you can't, try to at least get a good sentence.
Right.
So.
Okay.
That's good. So we're bringing you on for a fun. It's not fun. It's actually it's serious, but I want to make it fun in some type of way. But our shit you should know for this week, we'll start it with something that I thought it was funny. I don't know why. And I told you about it earlier.
You did tell me about it, and I immediately said it was some Caucasian stuff. I'm gonna make sure I'm not gonna say anything like white and stuff like that. You should try to practice the same thing while James is in front of us. Yes.
James knows. James knows what the deal is.
That's right.
He got this.
What's the phrase? I'm woke, right?
So I don't know if you heard about Denver, Colorado is known for already having marijuana legalized, and you can just walk around, go to shops or whatever. But now they decriminalized magic mushrooms in Denver. And basically the voters in Denver approved the nation's first referendum on decriminalizing hallucinogenic mushrooms. Have you ever used mushrooms?
I have not. I've eaten normal mushrooms. I've never, and I'm going to be honest here, as part of this, I've never used any drugs.
Nothing?
At all. Nothing. No marijuana, no cocaine, nothing. Understand, I was in a military family growing up. And then I was in the military for quite some time.
They smoke weed in the military, don't they?
No. Officially.
Okay.
Unofficially, yes. I mean, there's actually a lot of good literature out there about the sort of secret history of drug use in the Army. In fact, there was a lot of marijuana use in particular among soldiers in Vietnam.
Yes.
I'm sure they probably just wanted to relax.
Exactly.
Where did I find that out from? Was it Forrest Gump or something like that that kind of alluded to that? I think it was. There was the Vietnam War, and they were smoking, so that's where I got that from.
Right. But I think the sort of first mainstream big cinema movie to talk about that was Platoon by Oliver Stone, where he showed a scene where commanders and troops were seated in a tent, and they were passing around joints, and in fact, at one point, they were using a shotgun as a bong.
Oh, cool. Genius. They just know it. Well, basically, the vote was 50.6 to 49.4 of 176,000 voters. The numbers and studies have showed that this psilocybin can have positive lasting effects on depression, chronic pain, post-traumatic stress disorder, addictions, and anxiety. And there was a guy named Matthew that said his own experience with mushroom helped him get over a major depression. So, like mushroom, we know friends that,
I don't know anybody.
No, yeah, you do.
The boy that I went to school with.
No, when we went to have the Easter dinner, there's about 3 people that have done mushrooms.
Yeah.
3, maybe 4. They just like to try shit.
Okay.
They're my experimental friends.
Yeah.
So I just listen to their stories. I don't have to go into it because they got all the stories. But they say that it's kind of like they go into this hallucinogenic thing, and then it's just they come right back from it. Like they don't stay in it. It doesn't mess with your brain. So it is a natural mushroom. Like it grows from the ground.
Why would I want to hallucinate though and see things?
I don't want to, but some people do, because let's say you have PTSD, you want to kind of get out from your normal and go. If you have really bad anxiety, you just snap out of it. Like I know for a fact when I get my panic attacks and it's really bad anxiety, I don't want to be. If I could get out of the instance for just a little bit, I would
smoke a joint. But what gets me is that I didn't hear anything about this. I didn't know it was even like something like a movement to get magic mushrooms legalized.
A lot of people do them.
And you know how long it took to get marijuana to even come on? I mean, forever.
We already know.
You're right.
Why this is
This is why we're getting into this.
Right.
Yes.
We're definitely going to talk about it. And I did some research. We're going to talk about the legalization of marijuana and decriminalization, also like some of prison reform, because it has to do, I feel like marijuana and the drug war has to do with our prison system. So I did some research back on the marijuana aspect, and I was like, well, I thought marijuana had always been illegal. And come back to find out, it hasn't. So the marijuana was legal until around the early 1900s with the Mexican Revolution. So at this time, there was an influx of immigration from Mexico in states like Texas and Louisiana. And not surprising, because it happens with every other country. They come and they bring their language, which was Spanish, and they brought their culture and some customs. And one of them was smoking marijuana as a relaxant, and medicinal aspects of it. So back in the early 1900s, the Mexicans called it what all Hispanics call it, marijuana. So instead of a J, it's an H. So they have marijuana, and they demonized the cannabis plant with an extension of demonizing the Mexicans themselves and the immigrants, with wanting to keep tabs and knowing where these Mexicans are. So if they make it illegal, then they can arrest them and know where they are. Then after demonizing and criminalizing for the Mexicans in the 1930s, then there were claims and studies, quote unquote, that marijuana causes men of color, only men of color, to become violent and solicit sex from only white women. So now there's all these reports, marijuana makes black men, go after white women. Yeah.
You know where that came from?
Where?
During the whole jazz era, when a lot of jazz musicians smoke weed and everything like that, put a lot in their music, and especially in Harlem, what was happening was that it was causing integration of race. So white women will come and listen to jazz music and everything like that, and of course, white men had an issue with that, like, oh my God, no. And that's why they went ahead and painted that narrative, like, we need to make marijuana illegal and have harsh sentences, because this is what's happening. black men are raping our white women.
All because, and it's not raping. These white women wanted the jazz. They wanted the black lollipop. You know what I'm saying? They wanted it. It wasn't the weed that they were after. So in 1937, they became the Marijuana Tax Act. And that's when it was officially banned. Then Nixon, who we all don't love, in 1970, there was something called the Schaefer Commission. Mm-hmm. So it's basically put forward by Nixon, and it was called the National Commission of Marijuana and Drug Abuse. So they said that they doubt that it's an illicit substance, that there's nothing wrong with it. It should be taken down from Schedule 1, which I believe is like a major drug. Yeah. So they said it shouldn't be a major drug. And although Nixon put this committee together, he said no, discounted them on what they said and said, you know what, that's it. It's going to stay as Schedule 1, and we're going to use it to incarcerate everyone that's using marijuana, which really turned out to be only black and brown people.
Exactly.
So
you've done your research, girl.
Thanks, Fran.
I'm so impressed sometimes.
Because I really think
I didn't have to add anything.
I really thought that marijuana was always illegal. Mm-hmm. I didn't think anything of it.
I mean, we were taught.
Our lifespan has always been legal. I mean, even for yourself,
right?
You were born at a time when it was already illegal.
Exactly.
And we were already getting in trouble for it. So I wanted to ask you, like, how would the legalization now of marijuana affect people of color?
If you don't mind, I'd like to read a quote.
Please.
Yes.
There are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the United States, and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana use. This marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and any others. Reefer makes darkies think they are as good as white men. That's a quote from a gentleman named Harry Anslinger, who was the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, which was the predecessor to the Drug Enforcement Administration. Mm-hmm. That builds on what you talked about just a few seconds ago, and it's this idea that drug policy is really race policy. Mm-hmm. For all this time, every major decision that states and the federal government have made with regard to drugs, those decisions have always been filtered through the prism of racism.
Yes.
So whenever people wonder, well, why are we doing this? Why is this law being passed? Why isn't this law being passed? You can't just look at the merits of whether or not we should legalize a particular drug. You have to always look at the history of this nation and see how racism has fueled and motivated almost every decision that's been made with regard to whether or not to legalize certain drugs. And more importantly, the financial impact. Who benefits?
Right.
Who's going to make the money? So the benefit of legalization, I hate to be very pessimistic and cynical here when discussing this, but bottom line is this. When whites decide that there's money to be made from something and they want it, then they tend to legalize it.
Yes.
Look at the states that were on the forefront of legalization, right? It's no surprise that those are states that have relatively small black populations. If you take a look at, for example, Oregon, right? Oregon is not exactly a place we're going to find a lot of people of color, particularly.
I just told that story.
Yeah.
My boss that asked me into the office, closed the door, and asked if she could touch the faux dreads that I had in my hair because she's never seen anything like that. So she knew all about weed.
Oh, yeah, she's from Oregon.
And they're from Oregon.
Yeah.
Right.
They moved the entire corporate office from Oregon to Florida, and so there was all these Oregonians, whatever they're called, and they just really don't see black people out there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I think legalization could have obviously a lot of positive benefits for the people that I represent, like in the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
The fact that marijuana is still illegal, and this is the one point that I want to make, so make sure everyone understands. Even though states may either legalize or decriminalize it, at the end of the day, you still have to understand that federal law controls. Yeah. And as long as the federal law is that marijuana is illegal, which it is, right, you're really in a very tricky situation here because states do not have the ability to control what the federal government does. And enforcement, yes, for the most part, is pretty much off the table. In the latter years of the Obama administration and even President Trump, the Justice Department really is not pursuing cases against people just solely for marijuana. Right. Several years ago, I would represent people in federal court who were charged with possession with the intent to distribute marijuana. It's a federal crime, still is, but the enforcement's gone away. So when we talk about legalization, I think we have to talk about really three concepts. First, the relationship between the federal government and the states. Second, what's the difference between legalization and decriminalization? And then last but not least, what influences the changes that are being made? And I think it's race and economics.
It definitely. He's just so smart. I be telling people he's just smart.
I love it.
I just want to talk like that one day.
It's like I really don't have to say anything because he's just saying everything.
That we just might be thinking.
And just putting in great. It's just framing it great and making it
one
sound
day
all
I'll read
intelligent.
enough books. And I'll be able to talk that way.
Yes.
Oh, listen, this is what you get in exchange for not being young and vibrant and interesting like you two. Once you get older, you don't go out. You're not hanging out. So that's all you do is just really read.
You can still hang
So
out.
why now? Why do you think now all of a sudden that marijuana has been pushed to be pushed? Okay, so what
we're
do we?
in debt.
We're in so much debt. Much debt.
I think it's because
now the
so
government is like saying how much of a cash crop this really is and how this really can help our economy. But it's like, okay, so we make this legal now, and to buy into having a grow house, it's like what $10 million. Who has that in the black community?
I'm trying to fight these $10 before spending this. I don't know. 5 to 10 million. Plus, we can't all get it. I know that here, one of the big kahunas that are fighting for it, I think it was Morgan & Morgan.
Right.
So if it becomes fully legal here, don't they get one of the first licenses?
Exactly. Given the fact that they're really on the forefront. And you have to understand, for about almost 20 years, you've had a lot of people, capitalists are always looking around 2 or 3 corners for financial opportunities. And so I think they knew that there was a lot of advocacy out there. And they said, well, at some point it's going to become legal. It's probably going to start off with medical marijuana. Then they're going to legalize it for small certain amounts. And then eventually they'll legalize it all together. So, they do what most capitalists do, which is they say, let's have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. I mean, think of it this way. There's a video of John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, pounding his fist, asking for increased penalties for the war on drugs. Mm-hmm. Now, if you go on the internet today, you'll see that he's almost become like a character from a Cheech and Chong movie. He's one of the biggest proponents of legalization. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my gosh.
That's part of the reason why he left. He was being recruited by a number of organizations that wanted to have his face as the public face of legalizing marijuana. So all you do, if you go to Google or YouTube right now and type in John Boehner, legalize marijuana.
How do you spell his name?
Last name is spelled, I believe it's Boehner.
Boe?
Yes.
N?
Hner.
Okay. Now, you did touch on it, and I want to get it actually from you and not Google. What is the difference between decriminalization and legalization? Because we did it with the
prostitution, sex work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is the difference?
Good question. So the general difference between decriminalization and legalization is this: if you legalize something, then there's no longer a sanction. So in other words, think back to the period of prohibition when you couldn't drink. All right, that meant that it was illegal. However, we eventually passed an amendment to get rid of prohibition, and so now it's legal to drink alcohol in the United States. There's no penalty. If I go to the store right now and buy, a 40 ounce, which I won't, but let's just say if I decided to do so and drink it, I don't have to worry about any criminal consequence whatsoever. So legalization simply means there's no criminal sanction for engaging in the activity.
Okay.
Decriminalization, on the other hand, is saying even though it's still a crime, we're not going to enforce it, or we're not going to enforce it the way that we used to.
Yeah.
So you'll see, for example, here, there are about 4 or 5 counties in Florida which have decided to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana.
Are we one of them?
We are. Yes.
How much? For those of y'all in Orange County, listen, I'd be so scared riding with him. I'm going to jail, and I'm going to have to call James to get me out of this mess.
No, I got pulled over. I got pulled over one time leaving Carla's house, and I just had a little roaches in my car. And they pulled over because I didn't renew my tag in time. So pulled over, they smelled marijuana. Of course, they searched my car and everything. And it's like, we don't find anything. We just found this little roach and we'll let you go. Now, back in the day, we were taught that was enough to get you in jail, right? You get arrested. And
so how long ago
life.
would you have roaches in your car and go to jail?
Well, the decriminalization policy that we've had here in Orlando actually started in June of 2015. So what the current policy right now is this. If you possess, right, less than 20 grams, right, of cannabis, so if it's 20 grams or less, the law allows police officers to make the decision as to whether or not to arrest you.
Oh, so it's up to them.
Exactly. So that's where it gets tricky because I know there are a lot of youngsters who say, oh, it's legal now, I can do it. And that's not the case. Before the law was, you know what, you have it, boom, you're going to get arrested. We're going to send it over to the state attorney's office, and they'll decide whether or not to prosecute you.
I know people have told me, oh, you can have now 20 or whatever grams or less. I don't
they'll
know how
just
much
give you a ticket.
Yeah,
that's what they
or
told.
they'll give you a ticket, or it's they can't do nothing to me, so it's not true.
Right.
Literally, if they don't like you, or if you're too dark skinned, or if they're racist, or if that day they're in a bad mood because their wife cheated on them with somebody else, they can take you to jail.
Yeah. Exactly. So think about it this way: rather than deciding, all right, we as a state are going to make a decision to make it legal, we've put that decision in the hands of the police officer on the scene.
That's so stupid.
And we all know how.
What happens if they legalize the 20 grams or less? What would be the difference?
Well, I can tell you the biggest difference would be that you would suddenly see much more money available for good things in our county. The amount of time and effort and money that's wasted on prosecuting people for possessing small amounts of marijuana, it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. The courts are clogged. If you ever want to see something that shows you about the insanity of our drug policy, just go down to the county courts or the circuit courts one day and just look at what's taking place there. It's literally like a circus or a zoo. You'll see people wall to wall, standing room only, some people laying down, sleeping, waiting for their court appearances. Yeah. And a significant number of them are there for having maybe just a little bit more than 20 grams.
How much is 20 grams? Like, how many joints will that do?
So an ounce is usually 28 grams. So 20 grams is a little less than an ounce.
I don't know.
But you usually buy
like this much, like a bag.
It's like
a Ziploc bag.
Like a Ziploc bag, like a half of a Ziploc bag. It's probably an ounce. So yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's just enough for a person.
But usually people buy it in an ounce, half ounce, and then they break it down from there. So it's kind of hard, running around with 20 grams a week. I think anything more than that, they arrest you with the intent to dispute to sell.
Correct.
You'd be selling.
Yeah,
because it sounds like a lot. I mean, a lot to just be riding around with for no reason. If you're not just, you can roll up your joints or have just enough to roll up. Okay,
that's why your trap guy need to deliver, because if you go pick it up, if you go pick up your ounce, your ass can go to jail.
Right.
Yeah, and
they have those Uber services now, in some where it's legal, where they deliver to you.
Right. Yeah, it's going to a state or a city that has legal that it is legal is totally different from what we're raised. Mm-hmm. It's like going into a candy store. Literally, they have the bud, all on the counter. And you just pick your flavor and everything. I think you can only buy an ounce a day.
Yes.
That's the max. But listen, an ounce a day. But we can get
no, because when I went this last time, we had an ounce each.
Yeah, an ounce each, but for you yourself. You only can purchase. Yeah, you only purchase an ounce. So, but here you can go to jail for a very long time for an ounce. So it's crazy how different it is.
What can you get now here in Florida for an ounce?
Well, here's the deal, and there's a great website that I'd like to direct you to and your listeners to. It's called mpp.org, and what that is, it's the Marijuana Policy Project. Right. So the Marijuana Policy Project, what they do is they provide information about marijuana laws in every state. So you go to the website and then you click on the state and it'll tell you everything there. It'll tell you about the current laws. It'll tell you about laws that are pending. It'll give you the positions of the various politicians with regard to the laws. So, I mean, a really, really good website to take a look at.
What's taking Florida so long to get all these laws passed and making marijuana just as legal as it is in California?
Same thing in New York State. New York State is fighting. They're fighting it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Let's take a quick break. I know this is an amazing episode, but I have to let you guys know that we have a sponsor that's doing something totally revolutionary with birth control access in the U.S. And you guys know that I need to be on birth control because I'm not having any more babies at the moment, and I need to make sure that I don't. Well, our sponsor is doing something so revolutionary with birth control access in the U.S., and well, it's about damn time somebody did. They're called Simple Health. And they're here to make your healthcare, you guessed it, simple. They're starting out by simplifying your birth control access with online prescriptions and home delivery. I hate going out. It's like Amazon for birth control. Check this out. Did you know that over 20 million women in America lack reasonable access to something as basic and fundamental as contraception? The existing healthcare system that we have here in the U.S. can prevent women from getting the care they need, whether it's insurance barriers, income, physical location. So, Simple Health thought of a better way. With Simple Health, you can get your birth control prescribed online and delivered to your door for free. It's affordable, convenient, and safe. Whether you're already on birth control, looking to get back on, or want to try it for the first time, Simple Health will take care of you. So here's how it works. You fill out this comprehensive online health profile and answer some questions formulated to get the best birth control for you, your body, your preference, and whatever situation insurance that you have. They'll take all of that into account. A doctor, a real medical doctor, will review your profile, figure out if you're a good candidate for birth control, recommend a product, and write a prescription. Then your birth control ships to your door on a recurring schedule, no interruptions. It doesn't matter if your car broke down, it doesn't matter if you can't make it that day or you have to stay at work late, it will be at your house. And to be clear, Simple Health isn't making their own birth control, so they only prescribe trusted and vetted brands of birth control, including the pills and the patch and the ring. Whatever you're already on, they also have that, so you don't have to try anything new. The prescription is usually about $20, but for our listeners, you can try Simple Health for free. Just go to simplehealth.com/Carla30. So enter Carla30 at checkout. I want to mention that this is not a replacement for routine evaluations by your primary care physician or your gynecologist. You should still get a health checkup as needed, but it is the most convenient and comfortable way to get your birth control. I actually switched over to New York now, so I'm going to start getting my things here in the apartment. So again, go to simplehealth.com/Carla30 and don't miss your chance to try it for free. If you're a lady, this is going to save you a lot of time and money. If you're not, well, tell someone in your life about Simple Health to improve their access to health care. Everyone wins. Now, let's get back to this episode with James and Tony.
Well, the problem is this, and I know we're going to talk about criminal justice reform later on, but maybe I can go ahead and bring this up now. I saw something in the news. It was actually in the Tallahassee Democrat. There's a law that's making its way through the Florida legislature to change the criminal justice system, to get rid of a lot of the mandatory minimums, to make sure that people have a fair chance at rehabilitation, really to try to make the criminal justice system less racist and to inject some fairness and justice. The people who are opposed to it, sheriffs. You have sheriffs who actually came together recently and had a press conference saying that they don't want to get rid of mandatory minimums. They don't want to reduce the number of people in prison. And the reason why is this. And just think about this when you think in terms of how it's all influenced by race, but also money. Sheriffs have the responsibility for running the county jails, where a lot of people go to serve sentences that are less than a year.
Yeah.
If you tie it back into what we're talking about with marijuana and drug policy here, most of your marijuana prosecutions are going to be for misdemeanors. You ask the question, if it's less than 20 grams, it's usually going to be prosecuted as a misdemeanor. So what that means is that the maximum amount of time that you can get in confinement would be a year. And if it's usually a year or less, you're going to go to the county jail. Yeah. Well, when you're in the county jail, guess what you end up doing? You have to pay to make phone calls. You have to pay for food. Your family pays to put money in the account. And guess who benefits? Guess who gets all of that money?
The county?
The county and the sheriffs. I had a client tell me recently something, and it wasn't shocking, but it was still disturbing. He said he overheard a couple of the deputies praising and happy about the fact that, quote, inventory was up. They refer to the inmates as inventory. Yeah. The more inmates you have, the more money you get. And so the sheriffs don't want to see, bottom line, if we have fewer people getting arrested, that means fewer people are getting prosecuted. That means fewer people are going to jail. That means less money for them. And think about it. We're in a state that has no state tax. So how do you make revenue? You make revenue through the criminal justice system. Wow. I always tell people there's a tax in the state of Florida, but the tax is through tolls. It's when you go shopping for food. It's when you go out to eat. All of the things that you do that you need to do in order to live, that's how you end up getting taxed. It's regressive because if I'm making $600,000 a year, the tolls don't matter to me. That's chump change. Yeah. But if I'm living on minimum wage, those tolls could break my bank. Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I need to pay mine. I got a lot of them. I've been riding through them like I don't care.
But, when I got arrested for driving a suspended license, this is the only time I really got arrested, to be honest with you.
A few times.
Yeah, it's about 4 times.
We're going to talk about your jail experiences.
Yeah, my jail experiences. I told people I'm a thug. I've been in jail about 4 or 5 times. But yeah, I thought it was free to go to jail. Hell, when I left jail, I had a bill. And then when I went back, that bill was still there. So any money that you have on you, they would take that and use towards your bill. So if I got arrested with $20, and you owe $19, you're only getting $1 back when you get out of jail.
No way.
Honestly. So
it's like a hotel stay.
It's like a hotel. So I got hip to it on my second or third arrest. It's like, hey, I gave my wallet to my friends. Whenever I was going, girl, they gonna take this money. Hold this. But yeah, which is crazy. Like, and most people that are arrested are homeless people. You know, people that really don't have any other places to go or to do to live. So it's just continually oppressing them. So
outside of oppression, there is it's being legalized in certain places, and everyone's trying to figure out a way to get into it. And when you see about how much it costs to start a cannabis company, it's $5 to $10 million. How do you do it? So from listening to other and reading other stuff, it's like make an opportunity out of whatever you already have. So like when I was an accountant, I went into it because I knew I could be an accountant in any industry. Money was money. All they needed to teach me was their organization, and then from there it's like assets and liabilities, and I can do all that myself. So whatever you're doing right now, see if you can get in somehow into an already existing cannabis company, and from there learn and build your way up and build relationships where you can then invest maybe into the company and become part owner somehow. You don't have to come out of pocket with everything that you have, or learn. The way that I started this podcast, and I talk about this all the time, was learning on YouTube.
Right.
How do I engineer everything? So maybe you can learn how to start a grow house. Maybe how you can learn how to grow one plant. I mean, don't do it so obvious where you'll get arrested. Or maybe if you're in a state, you move to a state where it is legal. Start growing your own and start small. Everything that starts small can grow big. Amazon started in what? It was a garage.
Right.
That's
And now,
a myth, but yeah.
Is it a myth?
It's a myth.
I thought it was real.
You know, my understanding, and this is probably a myth too, is that he was actually working for some corporation and just wanted to branch out on his own. And so his wife, who probably now is not very happy with him, supported him.
She's happy as hell. You saw how much money she got?
Well, that's right. Ex-wife, right? Because they signed the divorce.
And she got that chick.
Right. But I think he started off just like driving around, right? Like in a van, delivering books. Like he started doing the research. He did what you did, basically, which was he said, you know what? There's an opportunity here, so let me use my current job as a way to live, pay my bills, and then when I get to the right point, jump out and do something else.
Yeah. Which everyone should do. It's called it's a side hustle that you can eventually make it into your main hustle, into your career. Right. But start it on the side of small. Everything's small. If you grow into it, and if you invest into it, and if you put your time and sweat into it, it'll grow.
Right. So, and I want to tie into that, I want to speak to the drug dealers and everything that's out there now slinging weed. Once this become legalized, guess what happens? People stop buying weed off the streets. Right. And then either they go into selling something a little bit more harsh, or they just, they stop making money. So this is a great time for the money that if you are distributing weed, save that money, stack that money, invest that money.
Stop going to the damn club buying bottles. Stop going to the club buying bottles and throwing money on girls. Like, honestly, because those same girls come and spend that money on me when we go out to eat. So, but listen, no, seriously, invest and actually become legit. Learn as much as you can possibly can now, especially about these laws. We are pushing for marijuana to be legalized because we want to use it as a recreation. Right. But then we also have to think about the business aspect of it. So this is why I'm great. Let's not leave the business to the white man that now gets to, flourish from this and make all this money from it. And to tie again, just a quick community-wise, yes, dope boys, get together. I know we have this rift, but if you think about other communities like these Jews and these Asians, they come together. It's not when you go out to see these nail places, boy, let me tell you, there might be one Spanish chick in the back doing nails, but they stick together. So what about if all of us come together, or not us, because I don't know how to sell. I know I go to jail the first time I saw something. But y'all that know how to do it right, come together, put your money together, and figure out how you can then take that money over to California to start off with, or what can you invest in? Is there a company here in Florida that has the medical marijuana in it, and they need maybe $100,000, $200,000? Y'all make money. Yeah. And I see it out here, cash being thrown, like you said, at the strip club or in the club. Maybe scale back on that, because if you invest into this now, 5 years from now, it'll be nothing to throw. Yeah. Double that to these strippers, if that's what you really like to do. So you'll make your money grow from what you got now, but legal. You can legally throw money or spend the money on bottles, do what you got to do. But if we don't come together, we're still their monkeys. They're everything. They don't see us as anything other than just being out here in the streets and good for nothing.
Some of the smartest people I know are drug dealers.
They're genius. Look, you're getting away with shit every single day. You're ingenious. You're innovative.
It's the organization that they build.
They're innovative.
Yeah.
They come, and when the police finds out about one thing, they come up with something new, quick and in a hurry.
But yeah,
something my son told me about, because I told him I was coming here, and he's a big fan, by the way.
I know, I love him. Hey.
The only thing is, he can't say the first part of the podcast, and so he was talking to his grandmother, my mother, and she's like, "What are you listening to?" He's like, "Oh, it's a podcast I like." She's like, "What is it?" He goes, "I'm 30." She's, "What? Is it just I'm 30?" And
oh,
I was
snap,
like, well,
I'm 30. They could,
yeah.
You can say ish. Ish, I'm 30.
Right. But, going into this whole theory again about how drug policy is race policy, think about the way that we handle positives for marijuana in professional sports, right? Think about this.
Yes.
If you were to think of what is the whitest professional sport in the United States.
Hockey.
They don't get tested?
They get tested, but if they test positive, they're not disciplined.
Shut
the
up.
NHL's policy is that they do test. However, if a sample comes back positive for a controlled substance, the league will reach out to the player and say, "You tested positive. If you'd like to get services, we can provide them. But if not, it's up to you." But the NHL does not discipline.
Just go out there and keep busting ass on the ice.
So Michael Phelps, he was tested positive for marijuana one time. Was he allowed to compete in the Olympics that year?
I believe he did.
I don't think he's ever been suspended.
Yeah. So, however, we know so many people that got tested for drugs that are athletes.
We
and
brought
Olympians.
Justin on here. He said it was Adderall.
Yeah.
He's like, I had Adderall in my system. It was prescription. We showed the prescription. Like the doctor gave it to me, and it wasn't even like so present. It was a while back that he took it, but it was still there, and it's like a ban.
Just
4 years.
Just in our face. And then the amount and how the community turned against Justin, he became like what a villain.
The
in a
villain,
sense.
Right?
Right, and here we are. I praise motherfucking Michael Phelps. I praise Michael Phelps. So
Right.
and it's just
you were
like
doing really good for you. You were
Right.
doing really good.
What?
Right.
Not cussing.
Oh yeah, I don't.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have to curse all the time. I'm in front of clients all the time, but I'm just comfortable right now, so that's why I slipped out.
Right. But it's just, it's another example of what we talk about, which is that when there's change or when people behave in a rational way with regard to drug policy, it's usually, sadly, in environments or organizations where there aren't black people or Hispanic people they want to control.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, in the NBA, you have primarily white owners, black players, but here's the important thing. The people who have the money to be able to go and sit courtside are white.
Yes.
Or celebrities.
Exactly. And so I remember one time I think a commissioner said if my league consists of all Grant Hills, I would be happy. Right? The idea of sort of the model black man. That's who we want. They want maybe the occasional
The
villain.
model hurt black man. They will have no team. They can't play with Grant Hill. He stays hurt.
Right. But it's just sort of
That's
that
my
idea.
neighbor. Don't talk about him.
Well, he should have done something about that body. So we don't want a bunch of Grant Hills in the NBA. There'll be no games.
Right. And it's not just a knock on him, but just he's
Right.
who America likes.
Yes,
That idea
yes.
of kind of the non-threatening.
The perfect black guy.
There you go.
He's not too dark. He's really nice.
Right.
I'm trying to be him and
He has
Timmy's
the
best
wife.
friend.
Right.
They live in your place?
Girl, they live 10 minutes up the road. I don't live in Ellsworth, but I live down the street. So.
Shut up. I was like, dang, which
Literally.
building you live at? I'm going to go nigga knocking on the door.
Girl, his house is probably the
I
same.
just got really excited.
As big as my building. Like,
Oh, no, how is it?
honey. They
Exactly.
stay 10 minutes up the road though.
Exactly. But the NBA, the reason they were so tough was because you had white patrons and customers complaining about smelling marijuana on some of the players. And they're like, listen, I bring my family. I want to watch the game. And I can tell that some of the players have just been smoking. And so, again, it's this idea of how race influences, the
But
policy.
I think, honestly, what they're like, we smelled it, and that in their minds are thinking about what was out in the news and what's being broadcasted as to what marijuana is.
Right.
So if you smell marijuana, it's coming from a predator, a black man who wants to now rape white women.
Exactly.
And that's what they're picturing. But in other states like Oregon, they smell weed and they're like, oh my gosh, it's a good time.
You're a hippie.
You're such a hippie. You're going to have a good
flower
you're
child.
going to eat good. You're going to hang out, have a good vibe. So they see good vibes when white people are smoking it. But when black and browns are smoking, it's violence.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's illegal.
When I went to my therapist, when I first started, I immediately let her know, like, let's not smoke weed. I'm ready for you to tell me to stop. And she was like, no, it's nothing wrong with you smoking weed. It's okay.
Just
like,
in moderation.
It's cool. Just in moderation. It's just like, just pick and choose when you're going to do it. And it's just, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I've come to understand that a lot of different professions really don't crap on people that do smoke. They encourage it. They tell you not to stop. It's okay to do it at recreation.
They just say you don't come home. Just don't come to work hella high, or you can't open your eyes and you can't speak. And that's not a problem.
Sometimes people do go and during a break, and that's what allows them to keep their job. Is to like they're able to hit their pen. Exactly. You come back, you relax. You control your emotions.
But sometimes people get too relaxed. Now there is a thing called Cannabis Equity programs, and they're in different states. So I believe Oakland has one, and I have an example of one, San Francisco, because now what these I'm tired of saying white people, but they are white people are saying, because I mean it is them. It's still, we're staying in a systemic.
Conservatives?
No, they're white. No, because they're white. You're not going to find a black one that's going to tell you this. And you might, and it might be one of those that's a whole sellout. But in San Francisco,
tell you what. Because I want to know what you're saying.
So San Francisco it's one of them that I used as an example. So it's this equity program that they're trying to do. And it's designed to lower, this is from their website. It's designed to lower barriers to cannabis licensing for those hardest hit by the war on drugs, aka black or brown. The equity program does this by enabling verified equity applicants to apply for a cannabis permit in 2018. So now they're allowing this licenses for the black and brown. It says, in addition, equity applicants do not have to pay the $5,000 permit fee, which is super high. So for a permit, it's $5,000. They eliminate that. And then it also benefits from an incubator partnership that provides rent-free space for 3 years or technical assistance to run their business. This sounds great. It's different cities doing it. So they're like, we're putting out here applications. Apply. Only 2 applicants have been able to open up business in this country. 2 black applicants. And there's another one in Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, is a white woman from this application. So there's all these applications being submitted, but they're not being accepted. They're not being read. They lose them. Just like everything else happens, and only 2 have been able to go through since it's been going on. San Francisco was 2018. There's other ones that are previous from this, but don't let someone come up to you and just because you don't tell you, but there's equity programs and they're doing everything for black and brown people to be able to get into the business, not just for the whites. But keep in mind, you really still can't get into it. They're roadblocking you the entire way.
Exactly. And one thing, the terrible irony of it, a lot of people can't get the licenses because of criminal convictions. Right. For things that we're now decriminalizing or legalizing. Yeah. So
speaking about that, there's when we're talking about like prison reform and like everything that has to do with marijuana and prison, what does one have to do? Because now, so let's say it's legalized and we're decriminalized. Someone who's been now in jail or in prison for 2 years for small amounts of weed, what can they do? Are they going to stay in jail? Like, what's going on with our friends and family that are locked up for weed charges?
Well, hopefully, what we can do is have someone, an elected representative, push for what's happened in other states. And that is to say, as part of any legalization statute, to immediately expunge all prior convictions. In other words, to say, if it's legal now, it's not fair that people in the past should have to keep that stigma.
What are these prisons going to do? These sheriffs are going to lose their fucking minds.
Well, that's why it's important, I think, for someone to step up and to show some political courage. But think of it this way. If we legalize, what we're essentially saying is that, it really didn't make sense in the past to send people to jail for possessing small amounts of marijuana for personal use or possessing any amount. Yet, what we're doing is we're forcing people to keep that stigma for the rest of their lives. And if you have a criminal conviction in American society, the impacts are terrible. The impacts on your finances, on where you can live, just all sorts of things.
You can't rent a place.
Right, serving in the military, getting clearances, all of that.
Jobs, all of that.
How do you go about if you're already out to get your record expunged?
Well, getting a sealing and expungement, I'll give you sort of the general process how that works. The first thing you have to do is you have to apply for what's known as a certificate of eligibility. There's something called the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, and what you do is you apply for the certificate of eligibility, and what that certificate says is to a court, this person got convicted of or pleaded guilty to this particular offense, and based upon the law at the time or the law now, they are eligible to either have it sealed or expunged. And so what's the difference between the two? Sealing is when the conviction still exists, but certain people can't see it. So in other words, if they did a background check on you and they ran the computer program, they're not going to see it.
But don't they see that something's sealed?
And that's the thing. So it's really not as good as a lot of people think.
Yeah. Right.
Expungement, on the other hand, is when the record is destroyed altogether. everything is torn up. And so then you can truthfully answer no. If the question is, have you ever been convicted of a particular offense? Because the law allows you to say no. But getting an expungement, it's very difficult. There's so many conditions and hoops that you have to jump through. Certain types of offenses are not eligible for expungement. And if you get in trouble, multiple times, you can usually only get one. So it's really not as good a deal as a lot of people think.
The expungement part?
Right, sealing or the expungement part, frankly, because expungement, if you think about it, let's say if you have one offense, right, and you get that expunged and you have a subsequent offense, why not allow people to get 2 or even 3, right, expunged? But it's very, very difficult to obtain.
So right now you can only get 1?
Correct.
Oh.
So why do you think prison reform has come about now?
I think prison reform honestly has come about, and again, I hate to sound cynical here, but it's come about as a result of too many people who are white getting arrested for opioid crimes.
Yes. It's white women.
White women.
Opioids.
That's it. That's right.
Xanax.
Yeah.
Xanax is just so big, and these white women are tired of being home with their babies while their husbands are out working in Wall Street, and they're just... Do white women come to you?
Yes. Yes,
So
I do have
Do you
clients.
have a lot of them that are there for drugs?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things, my father really inspired me to do a lot of reading about the civil rights movement history. And he said something, and it's so true. He said America didn't care about what was happening to black people in the South until 2 white guys got killed. Remember Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman? All right. Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman were civil rights activists. Have you ever heard of the movie Mississippi Burning?
Yes.
Okay. That's about right, those 3 guys who were killed. So you had Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman, and there was 1 African American, and then you had 2 white guys. They were killed, executed, shot in the back of the head for their civil rights activities. When America saw the press conference of the grieving white widow of one of the white guys, suddenly the FBI just sent hordes of agents down there.
Protect our white women.
Right. We've got to do something about it.
Yeah.
And if you look back, Martin Luther King, in a lot of his papers, he said, honestly, the reason why we wanted a lot of whites marching with us is for 2 reasons. We thought it might keep us safe, number 1, but we also knew, too, that the nation would not tolerate white people being shot or beaten or abused. And so what happened is you saw this upsurge in whites being arrested in the opioid crisis and realizing all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. You mean now I have to do 5 years in prison?
Yes.
I have to do 10 or 15 years in prison because of the way the law is written?
Yes.
Oh, no, Daddy, this is wrong. We've got to make a change.
Yes.
So they would get... So these people right now, because of the way the legislature has written the laws, they have to do those mandatory...
Back then, they were going to go away. There was absolutely no discretion whatsoever. I tell people this, and they think that I'm joking. They find it hard to believe, but it's the case. Crack cocaine and powder cocaine, there's really no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference in terms of the way they look, but it's a basic same chemical composition. But we know full well that crack cocaine primarily was consumed by African Americans, and we know that powder cocaine was primarily consumed by whites. In order for you to get the same amount of time in prison for someone who possessed crack cocaine, if you had powder cocaine, you would have to have, initially, 100 times the amount of powder cocaine to get what someone possessed crack cocaine had.
Yeah, so high as fuck.
Right. You had to have a lot. So it was a 100-to-1 ratio. So if you had a small crack rock, you were going to be going away for 5, if not 10 years. You had to have almost a carload or boatload of powder cocaine to get the same punishment. And for years, people talked about it and said, listen, this is a racial disparity in the criminal justice system. It's totally wrong. You know why it existed? It existed because a basketball player died. A basketball player died. The Boston Celtics drafted an individual named Len Bias. If you may remember Len Bias, he was going to be the next great player. I mean, people were saying that he could be just as good, if not better, than Michael Jordan.
Was he black?
He was black. Okay. And the Celtics were like, oh, happy day, because this was back during the time where the Celtics and the Lakers were going back and forth. And, sadly, the Celtics have always been kind of seen as white America's team.
Yeah. I mean, it's in Boston.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly. And the Lakers, were black America's team. I mean, there's even an ESPN 30 for 30 about it. I think you have Donnie Wahlberg, who's narrating on behalf of Boston, and then you have Ice Cube on behalf of the Lakers, and they talk about that racial dynamic.
He died 2 days later.
That's right. You see? Exactly. And let me tell you, you would have thought that aliens had invaded the United States. I remember at the time watching the news reports. I mean, they were cutting to special reports. Bias died using crack cocaine. Oh, my goodness. And so you had this sudden push to make laws with regard to crack draconian.
Wow.
Very strict. And you know who pushed it? It was primarily the Congressional Black Caucus.
But, you know, the chemicals that's used to make crack are very harmful. You know,
Correct.
Cocaine is in its purest form, all right? With the purer it is, the better,
Right.
apparently. And it's the more expensive it is. This is why black people can't use it. So this is why when it came to the black community, this is just me speaking off of things, not, you know. But you in order to make it stretch, you had to cook it and divide it up. And the chemicals that you use, which can kill people.
Absolutely.
So I understand the push, like, hey, like crack is even worse than cocaine.
Right.
But I didn't know that it was a harsher sentence.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
you didn't know that part?
No.
I think I saw that on the documentary 13th.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about it. He died on my daddy's birthday, on the same day my dad passed away.
Wow. But
Yeah.
I get it though. I get the narrative of like let's push like for harder sentences when it comes to crack because of how how bad crack is.
But that changed. So that changed now. Is it equal yet?
Well, and here's the ironic thing. When Barack Obama was elected president, a lot of people thought, finally, we have someone who will understand this racial disparity.
No, he doesn't.
And will equalize it.
It
wasn't equalized. It wasn't equalized. Now, it's an 18-to-1 ratio. In other words, they were like, okay, well, it's racist,
right?
So let's make it only 18-to-1 racist. And ironically,
could he have legally? Could he have made it 1-to-1?
He could have, and here's how he could have done it. He could have, through his attorney general and the Justice Department, said, you know what? We are not going to charge crimes in such a way that the mandatory minimums are invoked. The most powerful person in America, day to day, in a county, in a city, in a state, is someone called a prosecutor who decides how they're going to charge something.
Right.
Yeah. Your fate, more often than not, if you get arrested, it's not really determined by the president, the governor, your state representative. Yeah. It's determined a DA, someone who could be 27, 28, 29 years old.
Yeah.
You have no idea what their political views are, if they're racist or sexist.
Yeah.
But the minute they make that charging decision, you could be someone who's facing 5 years, or they could say, you know what, I'm not going to charge you with the above 20. I'm just going to go ahead and, frankly, give you a withhold of an adjudication.
Mm-hmm.
I've had federal judges.
What's a withhold of adjudication?
If you end up getting prosecuted, the one thing that you have to be concerned about, in addition to prison time, is whether there is an adjudication. In other words, a final finding that you have a conviction that's going to stay with you forever. If you get adjudicated, the court says, you now have a conviction. You now have this felony. You now have this misdemeanor. But in Florida and in most states, judges have the ability to do what's known as withhold adjudication and place you on probation for a period of time. And if you do everything the right way, at the end of that period of probation, you have no conviction. It's not on your record. So that's what withholding adjudication means.
Okay.
But I've had federal judges literally sit on the bench and cry and say, ma'am, sir, I really don't think you should have been prosecuted. And if I had the ability, I would give you probation. But Congress has passed a law requiring that I send you away for 15 years because of a mandatory minimum. And I have no choice, and I'm sorry.
So that's when they choose, like during murders, where it's like a capital murder, or murder 1 and murder 2, or manslaughter.
Exactly, it's the charging decision. They are the really powerful players.
Wow. Another thing when it comes to prison reform that I saw, it's the living. So I'm sure you have more experience seeing like what it's like living in there, and not only like the cost of it, where they go, but the spread of diseases. Yeah. So they try to tell us like, no, you can't have sex within prison, but it happens all the time, and they don't provide condoms. There's so HIV, hepatitis, pregnant women don't get the medical needs that they need. People with
nutrition values. I want to tell a story real quick tying into that. My granddad, when I was in high school, he went to jail because he pulled a gun out on a crackhead to try to steal our wheelbarrow. My granddad is the sweetest person in the world, y'all, but he had it. You just don't disrespect him. He'll cross over. Right. So anyway, he went to jail, and he came out sicker than he went in because he came out with diabetes, high blood pressure. I'm talking about like dangerous, like his blood sugar levels would stay low. And my granddad went in healthy as a horse. But it was the conditions and everything like that when he was in jail that caused him to develop these diseases. So yeah, they give you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, the food is horrible. Okay, the treatment is horrible. They treat you guys like you're animals. Right. And it's kind of hard. I read an article, or I came across a YouTube or a podcast, and they were saying that when people go into jail, they come out worse than when they went in. There's no reform. There's no reform. But then they're coming back into our community. Right, rehabilitation. And they're coming back into our communities. Right. So we have to deal with these broken people that have gotten broken throughout jail or prison, which is horrible.
And
which
coming out worse.
Yeah, and we have to deal with it. They're not going into the white communities. They're coming back here.
Right. So, what is one of the worst cases you've seen from one of your clients that they've like maybe gone in and came out like all kinds of fucked up?
Yeah, before I get into that, if I can tell you just a couple of things piggybacking off what you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things to know about Florida. Florida keeps more prisoners behind bars longer than any other state.
Really?
That's right. You're number one.
Out of 50.
I'm not shocked.
50. Number one. And we have more returning prisoners than any other state.
Yeah.
All right. So we're not just number one in tourism. We're also number one in keeping people in for their sentences and recidivism.
To talk about the United States, I've heard we arrest more people. We have more people in prison than anybody else on the planet, which is crazy.
Exactly. No, it's terrible. I mean, you asked me about the situation with the particular client. Well, there was one gentleman who, and this was actually not in Florida State Prison, but it's federal prison here in Florida. He had been in for so long that once he got released, and again, mandatory minimums, he was a relatively low-level guy in a drug organization, but because of the way the laws of conspiracy end up working, he got a 25-year mandatory minimum sentence. Well, there was some change in the law to reduce the punishment somewhat, and so he was able to get out somewhat early. So rather than doing the 25 years, he did about 19 years. When he got out, the world was too much for him. He had no idea what a cell phone was, how to operate it, modern-day ATMs. He was engaged in, really, I guess just the best way I can describe it, he had sensory overload.
Yeah.
The world had become so much more complex, he didn't know how to adjust to it. And within a couple of weeks, he ended up killing himself as a result.
Did you watch the Kadeem something Brown, Karif?
No.
It's a Netflix documentary at Rikers Island. The
young man who was suspected of stealing something.
Yes.
And he maintained that he didn't do it, but his lawyer just kept continuing the case. Eventually, he got someone who was able to prove, all right, he didn't do this, and he got released. But the trauma of being in Rikers for so long was too much.
Not
and he ended up killing himself.
Not only did he get released, Jay-Z was behind him. All these artists were behind. He received so much love from the industry. Like, let's get you better. Because he was in solitary confinement, I think, over a year.
Yeah. Right.
He was in there for years. I think it was stealing a backpack.
Yeah.
Right.
Something really, was it a backpack?
Right.
It was something so stupid. So he comes out. Jay-Z's trying to help him. I can't remember what other artists were trying to help him. And he just couldn't get past the trauma that he had at Rikers Island and ended up killing himself.
I hear that's one of the toughest prisons, or
they're supposed to be shutting it down
in 10 years or something like that.
Yeah,
but it's like until then, I hear some crazy things about that. Now, LGBT people are highly affected when it comes to the prison system. Trans women, especially, they're 1 out of 10 times more likely. Well, I'm not going to read that anyway, but they go to jail more often than our heterosexual counterparts. But the treatment there, or even worse, not only are they being treated bad by the guards and the prison employees, but also the general population as well. Right. So what ends up happening is that they are put in solitary confinement for months to years, either to protect themselves and stuff, and it drives them crazy. They're not getting their treatment, their medicine, their hormones, and on top of that, they're being gendered
for trans.
Yeah, for trans. Women will actually end up in a pod with men, and you know what happens from there.
So even if they have you had any trans clients?
I have.
Did they put them in the wrong place?
They do, and the biggest thing that they have to deal with though is the abuse by guards. You know, because we often think about the abuse between inmate and inmate, but the reality is that there's a very significant problem with the way that the guards, the corrections officers, treat the inmates. And in fact, it got so bad that eventually the federal government passed a law. It's called the Prison Rape Elimination Act. It was passed back in 2003, and it was primarily designed to deal with the number of either transgender or female inmates who are being sexually abused by guards.
Gosh.
In fact, the Seminole County Jail, not too far from where we're sitting now, is actually going through an audit as a result of that act. That act requires county jails to maintain records about complaints and how they investigate and solve those complaints. And so right now, if you go to that jail, things are good because they never know who's there in an undercover capacity coming to make sure that's happening. But it's a terrible, terrible problem. And yes, I did have someone who's transgender. They were accused of a crime, and for a period of 2 weeks, were in the Orange County Jail. And I think the person's still scarred to this day as a result of the treatment they got there, because you have a lot of, obviously, fear about treatment from your fellow inmates, but it's the guards nonetheless. And, the jokes, well, where are you going to pee, or what should I call you, things of that nature. So, it's tough enough just to be a citizen who doesn't have those issues in jail. Now just imagine how much tougher it is. The stigma they face in society when they're not in jail is tough. It's dangerous. So imagine what it's like in jail.
Do you have to have the gender surgery? What's it called? The gender
reassignment surgery?
Gender reassignment to be in the other prison? So what if you are on hormones and have implants and you look like a woman, talk like a woman and everything, but you still have a penis? You have to go to the male?
You have to go to the male. I can tell you a couple of months ago there was someone who was in that exact same situation who called me to come and consult with him about a case, and you can see the facial hair, you hear the deep voice, and there's a nice pair of breasts right there.
Oh, damn.
And so that person was in the middle of the process. Sadly, though, most places, they still go by one thing. What did your birth certificate say?
Yes.
And if your birth certificate says this, that's where you're going.
And there's no laws yet for this? Are they?
And not in enough places, and not here in Florida, no.
I come across something. The Constitution is supposed to guarantee, if you're going to prison, to provide food, shelter, safety, and medical care. And trans women are not getting safety, medical care, especially if you're on hormones and all this other stuff. And it's kind of crazy, but it's conversations we definitely should be having.
Yeah.
Trans people, like I said, I came across it. They're 10 times more likely to get arrested. Trans people of color than the heterosexual counterparts.
Man.
So yes.
That's another thing we talked about, the fact that right now it's felonies that we're looking behind most of the time for this prison reform that we're trying to change. I don't know of what the alternative is to a prison other than just not putting people in for nonviolent crimes. And when it comes to you, I don't think there's that many violent crimes. I think I saw on the grapevine, I think it's only 5% of crimes that are violent.
Yeah.
The rest are not violent. So they're maybe some stolen backpack or petty theft or something like that. What is a felony? I guess here in Florida, where you're an attorney.
Mm-hmm. What is a felony? A felony is any crime for which you can get the possibility of confinement for more than a year.
But for right here, I think theft? What becomes a felony?
All right, so that brings me to something that I definitely hope I can convince your listeners to call their elected representatives.
Oh, y'all better call now. Y'all hear Mrs. Smith talking?
Yes.
Call.
It's something called the first. It's something called the First Step Act. All right, it's a bill that's currently going through both houses of the legislature here in Florida, and it's modeled on the federal law that was recently passed by President Trump, the Federal First Step Act.
Okay.
And what that law seeks to do is to essentially prosecute fewer people, get rid of the mandatory minimum sentences, provide more funds for rehabilitation and training. And I'll give you an example of what we talked about with regard to what makes something a felony, all right? And grand theft. Now, grand theft, when people think of it, they think, oh, wow, grand theft. They're probably thinking, you know what? This is something that is really going to be really big, maybe $5,000, $10,000 or things of that nature. No, really, not that much. To get a grand theft conviction here in the state of Florida, give me an idea. How much money do you think you'd have to steal?
Well, you said not $5,000
like $5,000.
$5,000.
Okay.
Like Grand Theft Auto, a car.
What's so funny, when I think of Grand Theft, I think of Gone in 60 Seconds when they were stealing them expensive cars, but it was white people stealing them expensive cars and they didn't get no jail time. Remember that movie?
Yes.
It
I
just goes
actually
to show
like
how
that movie.
Yeah, all is like that movie, but that's not how it really is. Go ahead.
So you're still thinking in the thousands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'll actually text this to you so you can see this article and maybe pass it along to people so they'll know. But with regard to grand theft, in order to charge someone with grand theft, all you have to show, right, is that the individual stole something in excess of $300.
I know I took more than $300 from some niggas out here sometimes. Probably a few exes.
They gonna mute your ass just like they muting Cardi B. But that's crazy. $300 though. That is nothing.
It.
I mean, yeah,
that's a pair of shoes.
That's it.
Think about cell phones. How often do you have a situation where people are in a relationship? The woman decides, you know what? Let me see what you're doing on that phone. Who are you texting? Takes the phone from the guy, drives away.
That's theft.
She's sitting talking to her girlfriends. Next thing you know, a cop knocks on the door. Hey, you're under arrest. You took his phone. What's the charge? Grand theft. What the hell do you mean? I just took the phone. Yes, but the phone cost more than $300. That's a charge of grand theft. And now you're looking at a felony.
I'm a felon, B.
You're not showing up for work on Monday. People are thinking, hey, what in the world's going on? Because you took a phone. So what this law tried to do was to raise that threshold.
So what?
They were trying to do it to $1,000.
That's it.
$1,000 exactly.
An iPhone XS is still more than $1,000.
No, it's $1,200, $1,213.
And now the final legislation that still hasn't been signed off yet, they couldn't even agree on $1,000, so they lowered it to $750.
Oh, come on.
But again, here's why. Because they know if they make it $1,000 or $2,000, you can charge fewer people with a felony. Because what does a felony trigger? Time in a state prison as opposed to in the county jail. And also the other thing that a felony does is it triggers higher fees and fines. A lot of my clients are surprised when they find out that in addition to the conviction or time, they have to pay for the cost of the investigation to their crime. They have to pay court cost. They have to pay the cost of prosecution as well. So literally what happens is the police will say, we had to send 3 cops to the Walmart to investigate this.
And they went and bought donuts.
Right. So now you have to pay $300 for the cost of the investigation.
Yeah.
The cost of the prosecution, a state attorney had to put in 5 hours. And so we're going to bill you for his time. And then we're going to bill you for the time of the clerk and the various personnel court costs. So, something you could take a phone and the phone costs $400. And at the end of the day, you end up having to pay, close to $2,000-$3,000 because of the fees and the fines associated with it.
I wonder how much were the fees for Casey Anthony.
She got off.
So for her, it's zero.
She got off
because she got acquitted.
Oh,
yeah,
you're
she
right.
did. Right. So what's the difference between a private prison and a state-ran prison? Am I even?
They're private prisons, right?
Absolutely. The biggest difference is this: the state-run prisons do not have the same incentive as the private prisons. Private prisons are for profit. They want to make money. If you look, they're traded on the stock exchange, and they actually talk about their, quote, plans to increase or keep inventory stable. Again, they use that phrase, inventory. So this is where you talk about the perverse incentives. If I'm running a prison for profit, do I want to see crime go down? No. Do I want to see mandatory minimums go down? No. I want as many people to get arrested as possible, to be prosecuted, and to get a long amount of time, because that means that the state's going to need another prison and another one and another one. It's like that whole nightmare that Bill Maher talks about, the South being a place where you have people who are locked up and the only jobs are for the people who lock them up. That's it. So there's a lot of money in it. The biggest difference, though, and in all seriousness, is the lack of regulation.
Okay.
In other words, when the state runs a prison, there's at least some accountability. There's the idea that this is an entity of the state, and so therefore if you abuse a prisoner or do something, there can be some consequences for it. On the other hand, if it's private, like most private operations, people really can't look into it, they don't check on it, and as a result, you have a lot of the scandals that you've had with private prisons, where in private prisons, you literally had guards strategizing and planning how they could get people in trouble towards the end of their terms, so they would have to stay longer.
Wow. Do you have a choice in which prison you go to? Like, how do you know, okay, I'm getting arrested in this particular county, I'm going to a private prison, or I'm going to a state prison?
You have no choice. They send you wherever, because what happens is you end up getting remanded to the custody of the Bureau of Prisons, and then they decide where to send you. And so if they have a contract for a private prison, they say, you know what, Mr. X, you're going to head off to the private prison. And as a result of a lot of the criticism of private prisons now, they've tried to make them, quote, better for the inventory. So they offer like Pizza Hut or Kentucky Fried Chicken. And they try to say, you know what, private prisons are great. If you were in a state prison, you'd be having to eat that, goop that they eat there.
Right.
But at least here, you can get, Meat Lover's Pizza or some chicken,
because they're making so much money, they can afford it.
Exactly.
I came across a study that said in New York, when they did something where they stopped arresting people, right? And crime went down. What ended up happening is when the arrest went down, crime went down. It was actually a safer, everybody was safer, right? And it's like now, what you're telling me, it seems like, people are trying to find ways to actually, let's try to find a way to increase crime or to increase
they need
people
it. It's
to lock
more.
up. Yeah, so we can make money.
That very first quote that you said, that you talked about in the very beginning, it's not much different than now when they're calling the inmates inventory. Absolutely. So it's like they called super predators. They've called the Mexicans one thing. They've demonized everybody of color. And now it's like, we think about what they said back then, like, oh my gosh, it was so racist. But now it's the same thing. They're just calling us inventory. And we're nothing but an object and a moneymaker for them. Yeah. So it's like, we got to keep you in here. Do they still make license plates and stuff in prisons or in jails?
Yes. But here's the thing. What they do increasingly, that would shock a lot of people. So a lot of the road construction, a lot of cleaning up the roads, these things are done by people who are locked up. Yeah. And even surprisingly, there are some companies, and this shocked me to find out, where call centers, you're calling someone.
They're in prison?
Yeah, they are.
Shut
I've heard
up.
about that.
James, shut
and
up.
And they get paid pennies. This is actually just slavery work.
So instead of me getting like, oh, how do you do it? I would like to work here today. It's actually somebody out here in prison.
It can be someone in prison. Some companies are turning that way because it's a great saving tool.
I mean,
you save so much
business-wise,
money.
when you think about it, it's fucking genius. But what the hell?
It's slavery, girl.
No, I'm just saying, if you're just thinking only money, it's smart. But if you're paying them pennies, that's stupid.
Brilliant too. But
they can pay them a lot more than just pennies, or they can use that skill to then say, I worked for something, but then pay them so when they come out, they have money. So it could be a job within prison. So if they're paying out here, let's say $12 an hour, okay, pay them $6. Don't give it to them right away. Wait for them to get out of prison so they can get out of prison and use it.
You hear so many stories of people getting their education and stuff like that in prison, and it's not worth the tissue they wipe their behind with, because for one, you obtained it in jail and you're coming out of prison. I don't want to hire you because you're a felon, and like we just said, 95% of people that crimes that are committed are non-violent crimes, right? And we're treating these people like they're terrorists or
So I don't know if I missed it. You wanted us to call somebody because we calling. So no, what was it? Did I miss it?
Yeah.
He wanted us. What was it?
He went ahead and talked about
yes. So the First Step Act. First Step Act. Call your. Remember the House, Florida House?
Oh, we got to figure out who they are. Okay.
That's right. Call your member of the Florida Senate. And, there actually is a very easy tool. What you simply do is you just go into Google and click, who is my Florida House rep? Who is my Florida Senate rep? And it'll take you to a website. And if you just simply put in your zip code, it'll give you all the information. You can email, call, send letters.
And what are we going to tell them?
What you would tell them is that you want them to support the First Step Act, because you believe that it is a good piece of legislation and you want to see some changes.
Does calling your senator and your House representative really work?
Yeah, I think about that all the time.
The reason that it works is because so few people do it that when someone actually takes the effort and the time to call or write, they're like, oh my God, this person must be energized. Honestly, you and I right now could go downtown and it would probably take us hours to find people who could name both. Most people have no idea. They have no idea whatsoever. And that's sad but true. Because when we think of politics, we think of the National Congress and the president and all that, but we don't think about the level of government that has the most impact on our lives. Yeah. Right? So, like, for example, you talked about the situation that you had with, the driving without the license. Yeah. For years, so many people have been saying there's no way that should be an offense for which you have to go to jail. Yeah. None. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. but we can't influence politicians to change that because most politicians think, you know what? Y'all don't even know who I am. There was one Florida rep who actually joked about the fact that the reason he keeps winning year after year,
we don't know who he is,
because people don't know who he is.
It's true.
Right. Yeah.
Whenever I see like the signs outside, I'm like, who are these people? Mm-hmm. Where'd they come from? And they've probably been around for a long time. We just don't look at their names. And again, that's when Politiscope, I think, is a great app. Just download Politiscope and you just put your city and it gives you all the politicians in your area, your county, your state, and you can see and you have a picture of them. Mm-hmm. So you can put a face to a name, because sometimes we don't know who it is just by a name. Mm-hmm. Like you see a name and you can put, once you see a face, you'll see like who you're talking about. But we're gonna go ahead and call Florida House, the Florida House person. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. What you're gonna do is call your member of the Florida House,
member of Florida House,
and your member of the Florida Senate.
Okay, and then I'm gonna tell y'all exactly what you're gonna say on the notes, so y'all gonna call. Or we can write. Maybe they have emails too. We can email them.
That's right. You can email them. Exactly. Okay. Exactly.
I'll put it on there. So James, we're gonna move on to the next one. Sure. But honestly, I want to have you on like all the time. Well, every time I'm like, we want some advice, some legal advice. Yeah. We need you here. Something's going on because I know you're gonna know about it, or movies.
So especially now that when it comes to the debates and everything like that, when it comes to these candidates, I think it'll be a great opportunity to bring some people on
that know way more than me, because I just be making shit up sometimes.
I'll get what I learned from the View.
I really just want somebody to get rid of my student loans, and I'm not sure if that's the best way to go about it, but I feel like she should be the president. But
Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But I'll go by whatever he tells me sometimes. I have to, not go by
no,
whatever
you have
he says,
to do your research.
I'll do my research, but I want him to give me some insight too.
Sure. Right. Because what affects one person may not affect you, such as this abortion thing. A lot of men, it wasn't on their radar because we don't get abortions. However, this is something that really affected a lot of my female friends. So,
exactly.
So, we'll definitely have you back for that. But let's go into unsolicited. You can help us give advice on this one, too. This one says, so my boyfriend of 4 years moved out last week to be closer to God.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's an issue of like location or just,
Right.
Like your grandma, you gonna see God today? You keep fucking with me.
Right. So he moved out last week to be closer to God. 4 years. He didn't want to live in sin or temptation, so he left. Even though he didn't quote unquote want to. He moved in with his mom and his dad. I'm calling major bluff, but I still can't get over it and accept it. He wants to be on the phone as if we were kids living apart. He's 41 and I'm 35. We have no kids together, but he has been talking about wanting children and getting married, but he wants to do it the correct way or the right way. I'm so confused, hurt, bewildered, and feel like I'm in the twilight zone. He keeps begging me to take me out tonight, but I refused. I mean, what for? Am I being insensitive to his quote-unquote Christian journey, or does it sound like this man is just mentally ill? The move was sporadic, and we had no prior discussion about it.
Okay, well. Oh, I'm sorry. Usually I just don't jump in.
Go ahead,
but
baby.
This is something like... Honestly, when it comes to religious beliefs, I think this is something that you guys should talk about within the first couple of dates. Like, I need to know exactly what your beliefs are. This is 4
years in.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's a huge thing.
He was born again.
You think he was a born again Christian?
His ass better be 4 years later. Now you want to be Christian? You've been on in this punani for 4 years doing what we got to do, and now all of a sudden you Christian?
That does
What
happen.
were you before?
That happens. And if that happens, it's just like you just reached a point in your relationship where you guys are no longer on the same page. If that is an issue for you, if he's telling you his religious beliefs is telling him that he should not be, living together with this woman if they're not married, and you can't do nothing but respect his beliefs.
He moved in with his mom and his dad. I know what happened. He's broke.
That doesn't mess.
And he ain't got no. He's 41. He has no money. God didn't tell him to move back with his mom and his daddy. He could have gotten an apartment. So he's broke. He can't take care of you. That man is not broke. He just tried to take her to dinner. He gambled with his mama money. His mom gave him an allowance, just like when he was 11. Go ahead, Carla. He's broke. Okay, you listen to me, girl. And he has no money to take care of you. He don't want to take care of you no more. You might be expensive. I don't know what it is, but you don't deserve him. He doesn't deserve you. Yes, he's in a twilight zone. He's not that into Jesus. At 41, he's just not. And some wrong. It was sporadic. Come on. So, yes, there's something wrong.
I honestly don't think it's something wrong. I just
41,
think
4 years later, why aren't they talking about marriage now? Okay, then let's get married tomorrow. Let's plan this wedding. Why is there not a rock on your finger? If this is what he really wants, he can say, I'm going to leave in 6. We can live together and not have sex for 3 months while we put this wedding together.
It's temptation. Some people seriously, it's temptation.
He's 41.
I respect it. I don't care what your religious beliefs are, and if you choose to exercise this, as a person, it's your right, and I allow you to do so. Now, if it doesn't work for me in this relationship, I'll just go ahead and remove myself, and just continue to let you go down your path of enlightenment. And
remove yourself out of the relationship.
Yeah, I'll remove myself out of the relationship.
Yeah, because he ain't shit.
And that doesn't mean that man's not shit. It does
He's
not.
living with his mom and his dad at 41.
So people move in all the time to help their parents. Maybe his parents are sick and dying,
Help
and maybe
them.
that's the reason why he's getting close to God.
That's not. It would have been on.
No,
here.
it would not, because this is a very short paragraph. There's so many other things that could have happened. But I'm serious. Like, from what I see from it, it's just like he's whatever he's trying to do to better himself, allow him to do so. Sometimes that works with you. Sometimes it doesn't.
Then why lie about it and say he's trying to get close to God?
What makes you think that man is lying?
He's lying. You think he's lying? James, this is a very smart man. Break us up here.
Yeah, I don't really believe that's the reason, because, what's interesting to me is that if you're trying to get closer to God, why not bring her closer to God as well?
Correct.
By staying there and saying, you know what, I really feel like we need to change the nature of our relationship. And so what I'm going to do, I've been with you for 4 years, get down on one knee, give her the ring and say, will you marry me?
Right.
What could bring you closer to God than that? And I hate to sound cynical here, and I agree with you. Sometimes people may have, a legitimate thing, but oftentimes when you want to get away from someone, you give them the excuse that they're going to be afraid to question. And what are we afraid to question more than anything about people in America?
Their
Religion.
Yeah.
So if you say, well, it's because I want to get closer to God, then she seems like a jerk by saying, can you believe he left me for God? What do you mean? Why are you criticizing him for that?
It's just like when you're at work and you want to call out, you got to say you got diarrhea. They'll never question you. So relationships, God, work, diarrhea. You'll never get questioned and get away with it every single time.
Absolutely.
I know when somebody comes to me and they're looking for an out of a relationship, I allow them to get. Listen, clearly you don't want to be with me. Even if you are making this up, then you should go ahead and go.
Right.
Even if it is true, it's not going to work. So you should go ahead and go. So either way, the relationship should dissolve.
Yeah, this is over, girl.
Yeah.
Get you a new one. If you want one with God already in him, find him from now. But people can change their religious beliefs, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But there's no need. 4 years in, what's the next step?
Right.
Marriage.
Right.
You did bring up a good point. Like, if that was the case, then as Christians, what we're supposed to bring people.
Oh, you like
to
it when
God.
he said it, but not when I said
because
it.
the way he put it, because you said the man was broke.
Right.
You
He
said
is broke.
you said all this. No.
Only because I said he's broke. He's broke because he can't get a ring.
I went silent to you. That's what women do.
One thing that I want to know too. People who are really trying to get closer to God, I mean, what does the Bible talk about? You try to spread the good news, right?
Right.
Has he invited her to church?
No, that's why she mad.
Well, see, then yeah.
He doing God all by himself, and God really is like Alicia down the corner.
Yeah,
by his mama house.
You don't
That's what
know.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
You
He's trying to get closer to God.
Yes.
God, however, is a woman.
Yes. God is so yeah, girl. 2-1. Leave him alone. There's no real God out there.
It wasn't a 2-1. I said leave him alone. Period. Just for different reasons. I said it ain't gonna work.
Don't believe him.
So
Right.
it's kind of like it's an opinion from an appellate court.
Right.
Yes. We all agree in the result.
Yes.
Right. Just for different reasons.
Yes. Okay. So you're right. I like that one. So yeah, leave that man alone all the way. For whatever reason it is. You can pick whatever reason it is, but you don't need to be staying with him anymore.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go into our shit talk. You got one, Frank?
Yeah, just real quick. Publix, y'all gonna stop fucking with me when it comes to these tender subs, okay? It's been 4 times that I went to this Publix by Carla house. I don't know, maybe because this is over here, this ghetto. I don't know. Because I don't have this problem when I go to the Publix in Metro West. I really do not.
You know that is the headquarters
I don't give a
Publix.
I don't care.
Busy.
It's always some crap every time I go to Publix.
It's a great
so
Publix.
I go to Publix. I order the same thing. Carla actually noticed this. I'm a creature of habit. I eat the same thing over and over in the exact same way. So I go to Publix and I like their chicken tender subs. Now I discovered one time me and Carla went. They took forever to make our subs. And I was like, listen, I always ask for stuff for free. That's what I do. I said, can I get this up for free? It's like, yeah, you can go to customer service. They'll do it. I was like, okay, cool. So the second time, me and Carl was like, you know what we're going to eat? Publix. Let's go to Publix and let's get a chicken tender sub. I hope they mess up my order.
We went and they're hoping they would mess up the order.
They did. I paid for it. It was about 45 minutes that it took. My chicken came out. It was raw. For one, it wasn't done. And then it was like, oh, it's done. It came out. They cut it. It was raw. It was just... Chicken was still clucking. So that was that time. And I went again today to get a chicken tender sub. A couple days later, I'm waiting in line. They're taking their time, and then I get up there, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. We don't have any chicken tenders ready." Now, mind you, they have chicken tenders on sale this week. It's $6.99.
That's why
$2
they're
off.
so backed up.
This is why you should keep them on. So I had to wait an extra 10 minutes to get my chicken tenders, and then on top of that, my cheese wasn't cut. So I had to wait for his ass to go in the back and pick the cheese. It's the cheese that everybody order.
The Chipotle Gouda.
So it's just like, Publix, get your shit together and start having stuff ready, because now it's starting to aggravate me. Although I've had 3 to 4 subs, $40 worth of subs for free. It's pissing me off because the amount of time. It has costed you like 3.5 hours to get these 4 subs. It has costed me so much. So Publix, get it the damn. I love your customer service though, because I'm not paying for any of this stuff. Thank you.
So this is a gem for y'all out there. If you wait longer than 10 minutes for your sub, go to customer service and get the meal. So this Negro right here goes and grabs chips and a drink and makes it the whole thing. So I piggyback right behind him after I paid for my sub last time. I said, well, can I get a chicken tender too? Just so I can get no charge on that. So
she got a half sub. I'm like, girl, you better go for the whole shebang.
I didn't think about it. I didn't want to be a whole scammer. No. So I just did it.
I'm not scamming. Yeah, I'm just capitalizing off y'all.
Well, no, I scammed on that one because I knew it was going to be free. So I'm like,
and you wanted me to order it. And I was like, no, you ordered your own damn stuff. I'm just going to go down for my shit. I'm not going down for nobody else's.
My shit talk got to do with people that have phobias of motherfucking bumblebees in my house.
That's not a bumblebee, bitch. That was a whole wasp, and it was a fat ass queen wasp that came through that door, that window.
We're sitting here, we were eating and watching some stuff on our phones. We were
researching for this.
We were researching and eating. All of a sudden, Ayana comes out, and I'm trying to listen to what I'm doing, and I hear the most sissy, and I'm gonna call you that forever.
That's not.
Hi. And then all of a sudden, he's jumping damn near over the table. This grown ass, big ass, 6'3" man. And I'm like, what's going on? So I'm thinking, my back is to the back door. So I'm thinking it's a man coming in here with a whole like gun about to kill me.
Bitch. I have severe phobia of bees, you guys.
My daughter is running one way. He's running the other. And I said, that's it. I'm going to die. Whoever this man is behind me, I'm dead. I'm like, what's going on? Because there's no man behind me. There's a bee! And you jump into the fucking bathroom. Bitch. So, bro, my shit talk, don't do that to me again, because I was eating. My food came up, so I started burping because I was indigestion. Because of you,
bitch,
you could have screamed a bee.
This is what I told you. You don't know what I've been through when it comes
to
these bees.
You got stung by bees.
No, but you don't know what it has done to me.
You got stung by a bee.
When I do my buyer's consult, one part of my buyer's consult, I tell my clients, if I am showing you a home and there's a wasp nest at the door, I physically cannot go in. Mm-hmm. My body will not allow me to. So I can't. So this is how afraid I am of bees.
Well, can you please tell me? I'm mad because
I thought I told you I have a phobia of bees.
So right now, my food is stuck right here, right under my heart. I did not digest my food. I feel like I have to make myself throw it because of you.
And let me tell you something. That's not a sissy thing or anything like that. It's a true fucking phobia. So just like you got a phobia of fucking lizards, I don't call you a sissy.
You can though, because I do scream like a little bitch when I see him.
So that shit.
But bro, I scream lizard. I let people know why I'm running.
I can't talk. I can't. Everything just goes haywire in my mind when I see a bee. I cannot form a sentence. Well, honestly.
At this point in time, I feel like
it's fight or flight. That's what I do, and I run. I can't fight a fucking bee. So I'm running.
It wasn't even coming towards us.
It came from behind me, bitch. For one, who doesn't have a screen on their damn windows? Like, she got the windows all up. We live in Florida. Well, girl, you need to replace them.
The insurance wasn't replacing them, so I wouldn't come out of pocket.
She lives on a lake, okay? We are in Florida. It is bugs. It's animals that's rampant, okay? She has this window open like we're just in the mountains, and this is cool breeze, and fucking animals are coming in here.
So I had to let the only time that opens when you're smoking by that window and when I cook fish. The only time it opens up.
Well, my fish don't smell like that when I cook, by the way. So go ahead.
We're not going to talk about cooking now.
Go ahead.
We're not going to talk about cooking. That was my thing. Next time, just let me know why you're screaming. So I can... Now, another thing about this is that I am deathly allergic to bees and wasps. Yeah. Like, I can die within, 5 minutes. My throat will close. Like, I can't breathe.
I had 911 ready. I had SOS on your phone. Your iPhone, you hit me 3 times.
They wouldn't even get it here on time. You would have to, drive and pass all the red lights to get me there.
You don't have an EpiPen?
No.
Well, that's my shit talk for people that got deadly allergies and don't have the necessary tools to help. That's your ass. That's not me.
Okay, well, what happened was, don't do that again. And I had to go kill this wasp. It wasn't even that big. It went straight to the window, hit it with a little thing, and it was over.
You got something you want to get off your chest, James?
Yes, people who talk in movies. And let me tell you why.
Yes.
Listen, I purchased a ticket to watch the people talk on the screen. I don't purchase a ticket to listen to you talk next to me or behind me.
You can't go to a black theater then?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Maybe it's a function of getting older, but I'm at the point now where I watch movies like on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock because I don't want anyone else there.
Me too.
And the reason why is I always end up sitting either in front of or behind the guy who's on the second date with a woman who knows nothing about the movie, and he's trying to explain everything to her. And I went to see Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh.
And it was a complete nightmare the first time because right behind me, I can tell it's a first or second date, and she's like, "Who's this?" And he's giving the backstories for all the characters.
A whole Wikipedia.
And I didn't do it because you never know in a concealed carry state somebody might have a gun and shoot me like, "Oh, the black man turned around."
I almost got in a fight because of that.
Right.
Seriously.
But I wanted to turn around and say, "Would you two please either shut up or leave and do the briefing? I'm trying to enjoy this movie. I've been looking forward to it for an entire year, but you're spoiling it. Please stop talking. Please stop talking."
And they weren't even like whispering?
No, full volume talking too. And that's
like
at first I thought, maybe they're like older, maybe slightly hearing impaired. But she's like, "Who is the green guy?" And I'm like, if you don't know who the Hulk is, you have no business watching this movie. And I don't need you, sir, to then give her the 3-hour dissertation.
She probably thought she was being cute too. Let me have her tell me who it is.
Exactly. Like, I'm going to go see John Wick 3 later on.
Oh.
But I'm going to see it exactly in the middle of the day, hoping that no one else is in the theater. I now only go to places where you can see how many seats have been reserved.
Oh, me too.
And if I see it's flowing, I'm not going. I'm not going. I want one person. I want that person to be like mute, who can't talk, way in the back, and just leave me alone. That's it.
So, James, tell us how we can find you and hire you in case I get pulled over for weed more than 20 grams.
28. Oh, no, 20.
It's
20. 28
I mentally noted that.
Well, as I always tell people, I hope you never have to call me. But if you do need me, call me. And, I have no problem giving out my number. My number is 407-924-8595. And if you just Google James Smith, attorney at law, Orlando.
Do you have a website?
I do. The website, it's www.cplspa.com. That's the firm that I work for. So, again, www.cplspa.com. That's the firm that I work for. And if you click on James Smith, you'll see my profile come up. Or the easiest way is just send me a text or call me at 407-924-8595. My office is located downtown, the PNC Bank Building. I'm on the 4th floor, right in front of...
And you only do work in Florida?
I do work everywhere. I can go outside. Exactly. See,
the whole United States?
The one thing that a lot of people don't know is that you can actually get admitted for a case in other states. It's something called pro hoc vice. So I've represented people in California, Texas, Louisiana, all sorts of places. So I usually like to try to stay here in Florida because that travel, is pretty tough. Right. But yeah, I represent people in state and federal courts all across the nation.
If I didn't say it before, they call him the Johnny Cochran of Orlando.
Well,
so he gonna get you out, y'all.
There you go. Extremely smart. Yes. We went to dinner and we had it was Black History Month and we did some Black History trivia.
It was February 1st.
Yeah, it was February 1st and James spearheaded.
Let's plug that one in. So the Pharmacy here in Orlando is a restaurant. It is your girlfriend's
That's
restaurant.
Right. Girlfriend's restaurant.
Yes,
Lauren Falzone.
and she is the chef, isn't she?
That's right. Chef owner.
She cooks so damn good.
Yeah, it's in
Dr. Phillips.
Yeah, Restaurant Row. It's amazing. I go there.
So Pharmacy, it's really cool. You have to find like an elevator door looking thing and you press the button and you think you're getting in an elevator, but you're really walking into...
It's a speakeasy?
Yeah. Is it a speakeasy?
It is a speakeasy.
It's so cool. The food is amazing. The drinks are amazing. It's drinks that they like make them. It's like you're in a lab.
Yeah.
And they make the drinks. So it's really, really dope. If you ever guys are you here in Orlando, if you're from here or you come in to visit, definitely go over to the Pharmacy. I want to go back.
Yeah. I live around the corner.
You sure do.
It's right between me and Tamia and Grant Hill's house. So, yeah.
That's right.
Girl, we're going to be best friends, Tamia and Grant Hill. Tamia, you're going to sing at my wedding. She is.
Anyways, make sure you guys subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.